Hello, this is sports handicapper Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review, and I am ready to break down the games and the MLB overnight lines for the games taking place on Friday, May the 20th, the end of the work week. Let's get to it. Several interesting games on the card, in my opinion, from a betting perspective, and quite a few decent opportunities. So we are going to talk about a lot of these games today. We're going to start by looking at Tampa Bay, the Rays taking on the Detroit Tigers, and we've got Anibal Sanchez on the mound for the Detroit Tigers. He has been a recent bet against pitcher for me. Really, I'm looking to do more of the same here as he takes the mound on Friday night. He has a 5.91 ERA in his last three starts, allowing 12 runs on 16 hits and 19 innings of work during that span. He has not fared well here at Comerica Park. His home ballpark has not been friendly to Anibal Sanchez, that's for sure. A 6.59 ERA for him at home this season, 11 runs on 16 hits and 11 walks issued in 13.2 innings of work. So control has been a major problem for Sanchez. He's winless in his last three starts, and control has really been bad. 24 walks in 42 innings overall for Sanchez, as well as 8 home runs allowed. And don't look now, but that 8 home runs allowed suddenly means something when you're facing the Tampa Bay Rays. Because the Tampa Bay Rays, you may not believe it, you may think I've lost my mind, but if you go look it up, you'll find that it's true. The Tampa Bay Rays are the leading team in the major leagues right now in home runs. No team right now has hit more home runs in Major League Baseball than the Tampa Bay Rays. I kid you not. So all of a sudden, Anibal Sanchez's issues with keeping the ball in the park could be an issue in this start, and his track record against Tampa Bay is not very good, a 5.08 ERA for him in 7 career starts against the Rays. So I think Tampa Bay can score some runs here and get to Sanchez once again, in the Detroit bullpen behind Sanchez, not very good as well. So I think Tampa Bay could get some numbers up, crooked numbers up on the board. Don't forget, they were tearing the cover off the ball against Toronto in that 3-game dominant sweep they had over the Jays this week. So I think Tampa Bay is going to be able to score some runs here. On the flip side, what can we expect from Matt Andriese, who was phenomenal in his last start for the Rays? A 2-hit shutout against Oakland, complete game 2-hit shutout against Oakland in his last start. Didn't allow a single walk. In fact, he's allowed just a single run in 16 innings pitched over 2 starts since joining the Rays rotation. And the Rays have a boatload of confidence after just destroying the Jays, laying waste to Toronto up at the Rogers Center this week. I'm going to look to play side and total in this game. I'm going to recommend Tampa Bay at a near even money price. I can find a minus 104 right now at Heritage Sports. I think Tampa Bay is the obvious side here, with Anibal Sanchez continuing to struggle. And I'm going to look over the total as well, over at 8.5 in this game. The over's a perfect 3-0 in Sanchez's last 3 starts and 7-1 to the over in Sanchez's 8 starts overall. And meanwhile, Tampa Bay's got their bats going right now. Their offense is in very good form. 7-1 to the over, Tampa Bay, in their last 8 games overall. So I'll look to play the Rays and the game to go up and over the total between Tampa Bay and Detroit on Friday night. Well, we talked about the bad the bad Sanchez. How about the good Sanchez? I'm talking about Aaron Sanchez of the Toronto Blue Jays. He'll be on the mound when the Jays face the Minnesota Twins on Friday night. One of the worst teams in baseball. In fact, they're tied with Atlanta for the dead last worst record in Major League Baseball. This Minnesota team, not very good. We've talked about it on more than one occasion. And yeah, Aaron Sanchez did not have a great outing last time out against Texas last weekend, but it is worth noting he only had one other bad performance this season against Oakland. And what did he do in that start off that bad outing? He bounced back strong. He threw 7 innings of shutout baseball against the Tampa Bay Rays. And I think Aaron Sanchez is a very good young pitcher. Yeah, he's going to have his struggles here and there. He's going to have his bumps in the road every now and then, but what young pitcher isn't going to struggle once in a while? So I don't really throw Sanchez under the bus for having that bad outing against Texas. I think he's more than talented enough to bounce back from it against this Minnesota team, and it's worth noting he pitched pretty well against Minnesota when he faced them last season. Tyler Duffy is going to be on the mound for Minnesota, and he's an interesting case study because his on-the-surface numbers look very, very good. In fact, he has a 1.85 ERA, but that doesn't necessarily paint an accurate picture of the way he has performed so far, because his FIP, his xFIP, his Sierra, all those important peripheral advanced statistics that I take into account, they've all got Duffy above 3, so that tells you he hasn't quite pitched as well as that ERA would indicate. His swinging strike rate is also a bit down from last season. So these are all underlying signs that maybe there's going to be a regression to the mean coming soon for Tyler Duffy. And I know the Blue Jays lineup has been very disappointing this season, but if they're going to break out of this funk offensively and as a team, remember this is a Jays team that's really underachieved. They're below 500, a team that went to the ALCS last season. They've got to put some wins together against a bottom feeder like the Minnesota Twins. So if the Jays are going to get out of this problems they've had recently, this is the opponent they've got to do it against. And it is worth noting, Duffy was crushed, hammered by this Toronto Blue Jays lineup in his lone start against them last year. He surrendered 6 runs and a pair of home runs and only lasted 2 innings against the Jays, who just knocked him out early. So Duffy does not have a good track record against this Toronto lineup. I know it hasn't been the same Jays lineup this year as they were last year when they were swinging hot bats up and down 1 through 9. But they do have a good track record against Duffy, and maybe a chance for them to get going here against him and for Sanchez to neutralize the Minnesota Twins, which were held to 5 runs in their last 2 games combined against Detroit. Sanchez has a 3-0 record on the road. The Jays are 3-2 in his 5 road starts. A small road favorite price tag with Toronto, about -110, -113 in that range. In fact, -113 at Heritage right now, -111 at Bookmaker Chris. I think it's a reasonable price to step in and back the Jays here. Minnesota 10-29 on the season, 6-10 at home. Toronto's got to make hay, and they've got to do it against teams they should beat. So this is a team that Toronto should beat. So we'll look toward the Jays in that game. Let's look at a few other games as well for the Friday, May 20th slate. Peralta versus Mats. We've got the Milwaukee Brewers and the New York Mets facing off there. Maybe you look at the New York Mets run line in that game, -1.5. With the Mets on the run line. You can get a small plus price with them with the run line in that. Willie Peralta still a bet against pitcher for me. I've been fading him most of the season. He remains very hittable, and I like what I've seen for the most part from Steven Matz this season. So maybe the Mets to win by 2 runs or more, worth a look there. Let's take a look at Cleveland and Boston. We've got Corey Kluber taking on Clay Buchholz. These are 2 pitchers that have not pitched well recently. In fact, most of the season, Kluber and Buchholz have been disappointing. Kluber in his last 2 starts gave up 5 runs against Houston, 2.2 innings. That's all he lasted. Last start against Minnesota, 4 runs on 7 hits and 6.2 innings for Kluber. Both losses for the Indians. Both games went over the total as well. Now you got to face a Boston lineup, which for the last couple weeks has been hitting pretty well. Kluber may not fare well here. His track record against Boston up and down. But I don't trust Clay Buchholz either for the Boston Red Sox. I mean, he's a guy that's been a bet against pitcher for me most of the season. He's allowed 4 runs or more in 4 of his last 5 starts. His last 2 outings against Houston and Oakland, pitched 11 innings. In those 2 starts combined, allowed 9 runs on 15 hits, 9 runs on 13 hits rather in those 11 innings. Has given up 4 home runs in his last 3 starts. And Clay Buchholz's track record against Cleveland is not great. He gave up 5 runs in 4 innings. Did Clay Buchholz in his only start against Cleveland earlier this season. I look at this game over the total. It's sitting there around 8.5. There's some 8.5s. There's some 9s. A little bit of a split opinion with the total based on where you look. So shop around for those 8.5s if you can find them. But I'd look to see some runs scored in that game, maybe over the total between Cleveland and Boston. What else have we got? Dylan G against Jose Quintana. I like Jose Quintana as much as anyone. He's been great for the Chicago White Sox, but -165, -170, that's a disappointing price. I mean, I don't want to lay that kind of price with Quintana or a White Sox team that may be starting to come back down to earth a little bit. Have been a little bit more spotty in recent games after such a flying hot start to the season. So Quintana, again, -165, -170. He's pitching well, but as that old bitch said in the Enterprise Rent-A-Car commercial a while back, yeah, it would be nice to back Quintana, but as she said, sounds expensive, sounds expensive. You know what? And it's probably right. That commercial, by the way, it drove me insane for years. I always saw that Enterprise Rent-A-Car commercial with the old ma getting the rent-a-car as a gift from her son for Mother's Day. And can you believe? Could you imagine if that's your mother? Not that, hey, you did something nice for me as my son. Getting me a nice Mother's Day gift, a free rent-a-car to take me wherever I want to go. Not anything like that, she says to him. First damn comment out of her mouth is not what a nice thing you did for me. It's, gee, sounds expensive. Sounds expensive. I mean, my goodness. That's after everything the son does for you and has done for you, getting this nice gift of a rent-a-car. The only thing you can say is it sounds expensive. That's the first thing out of your mouth. My goodness, could you imagine if you had a mother like that? Oh, it would be very, very frustrating, very aggravating. That's for sure. I mean, my goodness, geez. I mean, why don't you just be quiet, Ma, and enjoy the gift, okay? Don't be ungrateful. Anyway, that commercial just drove me nuts all the years I saw it. So, anyway, Jose Quintana, getting back to this game, he's pitching great. I'm not interested in laying that kind of price. And don't look now. Kansas City, after some struggles for a few weeks there, had a much better series against Boston earlier this week. Maybe starting to get things going a little bit. So maybe value on Kansas City. But again, Quintana pitching well. I'm not stepping in front of him. But at the same time, minus 165, minus 170, not a cheap price at all to back him in that game. And last, let's end with the Yankees in Oakland. Sabathia versus Gray. I said it before. I think Sonny Gray, there's something wrong with this guy. He is getting hit hard. He is not fooling many hitters. Walks have been an issue. He's given up lots of hard contact. I honestly think there is an injury going on. I'm not surprised. I'm surprised that it hasn't been divulged yet, that nobody's come forward with some information as to why all of a sudden the ace of this Oakland staff is just getting hit hard on a routine basis. But I do think that's going to end up happening at some point. So definitely want to keep your eye on that. I think Sonny Gray right now remains a bet against pitcher. He got roughed up by Tampa Bay in his last start. I mean, when you look at it, the numbers just haven't been good whatsoever for Sonny Gray, and I think he might end up on the DL sooner rather than later. It would not surprise me to see that happen at some point. And you look at the majority of the Sonny Gray starts recently, too. They're flying over the total. Because he has just been getting roughed up, but he's still been priced cheap like the ace pitcher that he's been. But when you look at it, 6 runs allowed in his last 3 starts against Seattle, Boston, and Tampa Bay. That's not very good. So maybe the New York Yankees can do some damage here against Sonny Gray. And CC Sabathia, believe it or not, he's pitched pretty well for the New York Yankees this season. A lot of concerns about his age, about his ability to stay healthy, yet, he's pitched pretty well. For the most part this season. He's allowed 3 runs or less in all 5 of his starts, coming off a 6-hit shutout performance in 7 innings against Baltimore in his last start. So lots of good signs from CC Sabathia. If I look to bet that game, I'd lean to the New York Yankees. You're getting a solid underdog price with them in that game. Of about plus 115, plus 120 in that range. Maybe as well the over at 8. Pretty much across the board, the total is 8 in that game. So the Yankees and over, that makes a little bit of sense to me as well on Friday night in that game between New York and Oakland. All right, so that's going to do it. We're going to wrap it up. That's your look at MLB overnight betting lines for the games taking place on Friday, May the 20th. I'm sports handicapper Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review. As always, I remind you to check out the website at sportsbookreview.com. Live odds, videos, articles, all the information you need to be a winning and successful sports bettor. Until next time, I'm Ian Cameron. Enjoy the games and good luck.